Life. Good, 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 good. Perfect, wonderful, amazing times. Good, good. I am your host, Jaws Blake. This is Lil Basquiat. Happy Black History Month. Happy, there's so many things that are going on this month. Happy Lunar New Year. Happy whatever you celebrate. I think I celebrate you. So, I have some napkins. No, I have a Mediterranean bowl with a little added stuff that I had in my fridge. Some pickled things, some veggie sausage, as it is said by ridiculous people, and a chai latte. I have to. Good morning, Zeb. How are you? How are you? I have to today go to a doctor's appointment at 12:30. So I am excited and nervous. I'm getting my arm meter today, hopefully. So it'll make it a lot easier. Pricking my fingers all the time is kind of horrible. It's not so much painful anymore, but I use my hands so much. I'm a painter, I'm a mechanic, I'm just destroying my fingers a little bit. So preferably I'll get this meter. They're referred to as a continuous glucose meter. So I'm excited about that. I'm nervous but excited. I'm always nervous to go to the doctor's office because there's so many sick people there. So I will be masked up while I'm there. Now where is there? But yeah, just doing as I do in the world. I've been having these interesting conversations with Alec, and I talk to myself also, so we won't lie about that. But other people as well, who aren't just me and my beautiful bride. And we've been talking about, in the realm of art and music, that kind of evolves into politics, but not in the traditional sense of politics, but everything is slightly political, I think, to some extent. A hard stance can be a political stance. So we were talking about the Grammys, actually. The producers are chasing each other. If you hear this crazy noise, Tom is singing. Mochi is yet to sing, but we're gonna hold our breath. She'll probably do it. So in the Grammys, the guy who won Best Art Album was this guy named Killer Mike. Some of you are not gonna know who Killer Mike is, and that's okay. It's not your genre of music. I get that. Why are you guys fighting? Don't fight. You okay? You crazy? Yeah? You calming down? Bring it down a little bit? Peace? No? It's gonna wild out through the whole stream? Okay. So, in that, Killer Mike won Best Album, Best Rap Album, and a very young contingent of music lovers did not know who Killer Mike was. They thought some very young artists should win instead. Amusingly enough, those young artists did not feel that way. They were like, "Yeah, he's an icon in the music industry." Hmm? I get weird notifications. He's an icon in the rap industry. He's a civil rights leader. I don't always agree with everything he says in the civil rights aspect. He has a tendency to kind of dunk on. I don't even know if dunk's the right word. Killer Mike has a tendency to remind people when they feel like they're fed up with the way the world works. Oh, I forgot to show my sound. My goal. Fed up with the way the world works. And so they would like to, in some way, secede as a people, black people as a people, in a lot of ways when someone's killed or imprisoned or whatnot, and people feel like it's unjustified. The black community has a tendency to kind of rally together and have these discussions. And they don't always come out and they don't always change the world or do anything of that nature. Sometimes it's just people coming together to share their traumas, to let people know that they're not alone in them. And Killer Mike has been known on occasion to remind people it's like you want to break away from society and get away from police violence and all these things, but you don't know basic survival skills. You don't know how to make a fire in the woods, how to plant crops, how to catch and kill and clean animals, and set up an electrical grid and do all these things. Which is true, but there's a better way to go about it, and so we disagree in the mode in which he does that. I don't think crying people scared in like a church trying to figure out what the next step for their lives and how to protect their grandbabies and so on and so forth, and kids and themselves and so on. Me to be told that they, in a harsh way, that they will never achieve independence, if that is what they're going for. It's not even as a people, but as like a community. Like I know so many communities that have like community gardens and they feed communities with those community gardens. And in that, they also get shut down sometimes by their local governments because they don't have the proper permits, or the city doesn't want them to do it, or whatever. But it basically gets shut down. It's kind of the main thing. There was like a story of a guy years upon years ago. He had horrible light. He didn't have direct sunlight in his backyard, so he put a garden in his front yard, and he used that to feed, himself and like some local community stuff. And the city shut him down. Told me he was not legally allowed to have a garden in the front of his house. So it just kind of sucks. I think it's a lot of people who would love to do nice things for other people and themselves. And sadly, like the opportunity is not quite there to allow them to do so. So that's a little frustrating. Back to the Grammys. So Killer Mike, who's part of the rap duo Run the Jewels, put out an album, highly acclaimed, had a lot of big names on it, did really well. And it won, best album of the year. He won a lot of awards actually. He won a lot. He kind of had a sweep in a lot of the rap album stuff. I think it was like best single, best production, best everything. And then he won best album, best hip hop album, best rap album, something. I don't remember the way it was worded, but and all these very young music fans were like, who is that guy? What are you talking about? He's not more popular than a Jay-Z or a Kanye or a... I'm trying to pick... I don't even know if these people were in the category, but I know... These are names that I know everybody knows. A Tupac, etc. Snoop Dogg, so on. 50 Cent, Eminem, so on. None of these people were in this category. But he won, and there was this weird outcry of people who were very upset about it. Because I don't want to call them casual fans, but they were not really connected to the... I'm trying to think. They were not really connected to the essence of the music. They listened to very like poppy versions of it. I'm stuck in a dryer. How's it going? It's still the funniest thing in the world. It's a great name. And it was just interesting. It was interesting to see these people, and it's an argument that like a lot of like older people like myself who've been listening to music for a long time, particularly hip hop and rap, and my favorite rappers are like MF Doom, Bus Driver, Milo, stuff like that. I'm not a conventional music fan in a lot of ways. I like more kind of alternative, underground stuff. I remember all these great artists as they were coming up. I remember Biggie, I remember NWA, I remember Wu-Tang, I remember all these people. But it's interesting to see people who are fairly fresh and new to it, and they only listen to like radio and like very pop albums, like Drake, and I guess in a lot of ways, like Wu-Tang is not pop, but they've become kind of pop in a lot of ways with the merchandising and stuff like that. Merchandising in television and movies and things of that nature. So it's always odd and slightly, hey Alec, my wife is here, my baby. It's always interesting to see people who don't really listen to a genre of music, but they listen to an artist. And so they have no real interest in... They don't enjoy rap music, they enjoy like Eminem. That's all they enjoy. And so, when their favorite artist, who's the only artist they listen to, we'll just say Drake. Drake's probably the most popular person right now. If Drake doesn't win everything, they feel like it's just like a huge... What's up, John? They feel like it's a huge like downplay in that somehow they got robbed. Somehow Drake got robbed because he didn't win an album of the year type of thing. And it's just kind of ridiculous because like they don't know music. They know, or I don't even want to say they don't know music, but they don't know the essence of how these people got to where they are and the music that inspired them. So like Killer Mike winning the award was interesting because of the backlash, like I said, that all these people had about it. Which was strange to me. Stop fighting, please. It was strange to me because it shows further the disconnect of like radio and even Spotify to, and on Pandora and all these things. Guys, stop fighting. Hey, stop. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to see. It's kind of it's a weird disconnect that like me and a lot of friends of mine who listen to a lot of music in record stores. I mean, yes, that makes me a hipster. I'm fine with that. We go to record stores and we listen to albums and we buy like music. We actually buy physical music, and it's interesting to see how we're coming from two very different places. So, I don't know. My argument for Eminem fans have often been like, it's not that Eminem is not talented. I wouldn't go so far to say that. I don't think he's the best artist in the world. I think the metric that people try and say that he's the best artist in the world has nothing to do with hip hop music. Because people go like, well, he's the best selling artist of all time as far as hip hop goes, and it's like, yeah, but that's marketing and all these things. There's so many people. It's there's so many people who are not aesthetically marketable. They're not a white kid from Detroit, basically, and they weren't marketed as such. Like Eminem had a huge machine behind him making sure all these things were going on. And like I said, it's not that he's not talented. Most of my frustration with Eminem comes from his fan base that don't know anything else beyond Eminem. It's just kind of odd. You see it in the art world too a lot. Like people know like the names of the Ninja Turtles, and then they know like Frida Kahlo. If they've ever had a big movie where someone has either played them or used their names as a marketing strategy, then they know them. But like, I remember getting this tattoo, and everyone in the tattoo parlor was like a middle-aged white guy, young white kid who was younger than me, who I was friends with, who was doing the tattoo for me, and then this middle-aged black guy who was like super jacked and had a lot of tattoos. None of them knew who Basquiat was. Not one of them. And this is before. This is like a decade before all the marketing stuff had come out. And they were definitely fans of the work, but they didn't know who he was. When I showed them, they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah. I think I've seen this guy's work up before. Does he have any work currently up anywhere?" And I'm just like, he died in like the '80s. No, he does not. Or even like with writing, like Baldwin and stuff like that. Like it's interesting how we all have so much more to learn about the things that we like. And I think that's really interesting to me. Like I think there are educational moments of it. I think the Killer Mike thing is weird because y'all don't. When I say y'all, I don't mean y'all. The greater y'all don't necessarily wish to learn about these things. There's this great interview I watched from this young African woman. She was from Congo. And she was talking about all the ridiculous questions she gets from people on the internet about Congo. And she's like, the weirdest part is we live in this country where information is so wildly accessible via our phones, via our computers, via our news, via our television. And yet, people still ask these insane questions. Naroru. Hello, brother. And people still ask these insane questions of them. They ask them how they get water, how they have electricity, how they do these things. And it's partially, there's definitely a racial component to that. But there's a certain level of like, we could know everything that we wonder about if we looked it up. But a lot of times we choose not to. And that to me is perplexing. I think wonder is probably one of the best things in the whole world. Don't get me wrong. I remember the 80s and 90s on the idea of, you had Encyclopedia Britannicas, like installments of these giant books. And if you had a wonder about something, you could look it up and get these answers because, there was no internet really. The internet was not what it is, if it was around at all at the time. And it was just interesting. Hey, Jen. Hello. The internet was it was more kind of a fledgling thing in which the world gave a lot of didn't really give a lot of credence to it. It wasn't fully accessible. It wasn't fully shaped the way it is now. Like now you have all these search engines. You can look up most things. You can get most answers rather quickly. But in the 90s with AOL, you did not have quite the ability to do so. I'm going to plug in your phone line. The internet was not fast. So it was a little more difficult to find these things. I remember like if you wanted to go, there were so many things pre-streaming that record stores and video shops and libraries and the CD thing you had to put in the computer. Yeah, exactly. The cup holder, as the joke went with Dell's. You'd be like, want a cup holder? And hit the button, and like the CD thing would pop out. The drive would pop out. Put a CD in. Press it again, and it'd go back in. You'd read it. It was a simpler time. But it was interesting. I just think it's kind of wild how like people don't know certain things and they choose to not really look them up. And so they just take like a hot take on it. Like I remember a couple weeks ago just going to a record shop and just thumbing through albums upon albums upon albums upon albums upon albums. And like picking up stuff that was not even remotely stuff that I was in love with, but I knew of the music, I knew of the genre, and I wanted to listen to it. The last album I picked up was this guy. He's a Trinidad, Mr. President, Soca Samba Girl. He's a Trinidad soca artist. And I picked this up for like maybe $1.50. And I've been listening to it. It's a Trinidad's version of Trinidad Samba, basically. Samba is a music typically you hear in Latin America or South America, oftentimes. Trinidad is part of that. Most of you might not know that. And so one of the many languages spoken in that area, you got French, you got Spanish, you got Portuguese, you got English, you got Patois. One of the best things I heard, even when the Bob Marley movie that's coming out, was that the actor said he had to learn the language. He said the language is so different, and it made me smile so hard because I was like, it's nice to see big movie studios instead of looking at the way in which our cultures, and I'm not from Jamaica. I'm from Trinidad. And other parts of Latin America. It's nice to see them not write it off as like a pidgin language. oftentimes like our language is oftentimes thought of as like it's just disrespected. It's thought of oftentimes it's portrayed more kind of like a parody than it is us as a people and how we are and how we speak and what makes sense to us. Like it's our country, our islands, our etc. I think the weirdest thing for most people when they go to the islands, the Caribbean, South America, is that it's the first time in their lives they've not been surrounded by, especially if you live in America or North America or parts of Europe, it'll be the first time in your life you've probably ever been around more people of color than like European influence, white people. Um, and sometimes that can be very overwhelming for people. Because a lot of the things that are really important in our society don't really play into as much. So it's just different. It's not wrong. It's not more right. It's just different. It's an entire culture based on a different people. And some of the things you'll try, food, music, language, traditions, are extremely different. And there's something very beautiful about that to me. Because I miss Carnival. I miss people talking to me in the different ways in which they speak. That we can go back and forth and connect with one another. And so I really like that. I don't know. I dream of beaches and sand and drinks and food. I can really only drink coffee, tea, and water, but still, diabetes. But still, like, it's beautiful, you know? It's, it's powerful. Hmm. So my favorite thing that I found out in the last month or so was this program called Deadly Nightshade. Deadly Nightshade is a program that if you put your art on the internet, you should do. You, it's basically like a backdoor program that poisons AI so that they're stealing your work without your consent to make programs. It essentially basically just shuts it all down. It will ruin it within a couple of months. And it's like a minuscule amount of poison. But if they're doing it, 4 to 5,000 times a week, it's the end of them. And they have nothing to lead up to it. And so, when it starts to crash, they don't know how far back they have to go and their backups to see if it's there and waiting to get them, basically. I figure we have to fight back somehow. The concept of people stealing your work for their profit just seems kind of insane. Definitely not right. So, we have to fight. We have to get all these things going. We have to do all we can for each other. I don't pretend to know all the things in which the world is going to twist and turn, but I have the basic understanding that we as a people have to we have to stand up for each other. We have to be willing to learn new things. And revolution does not have to be something violent. See you. See you, Jen. Revolution doesn't have to be anything violent or anything of that nature, but it can be something abrupt. So, I don't know where I'm going with this. Mostly just be nice to each other and enjoy art and music and food and culture and people. And if you can, just be happy if you can. I am Charles Blake. I finished my meal. And the show is over. Painter out, kids. My Galeras, I love you. You're wonderful. I will see you later or next week. Art video on the way. See you tomorrow.